Welcome back to the S&T podcast. Today we are in the college football playoff realm still, talking about Indiana against Oregon in Atlanta. But going to be a good game either way. This will be the second time we've seen this game this year. First game, Indiana beat Oregon 20-15. So good, another rematch. This is our fourth rematch in the college football playoff so far. Between we had Alabama, Oklahoma, um, we had Georgia, Ole Miss, Tulane, and what? This is the fourth one, right? Am I forgetting another one?
Yeah, this will be the fourth one, I believe.
This will be the fourth one. Okay, yeah. So another rematch in the college football playoff, which I think this one is going to be the most interesting because Indiana, the only team to have a bye week and take advantage of it and actually win their game. Not only win their game, but blow Alabama completely out of the water, which I don't think anybody really expected it to be that bad. So, Indiana showing up again. We're gonna see what happens, but without further ado, I'll send it over to Faison, and let's see what you got to say, buddy.
Thank you very much, Tom. Yes, we have the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl coming up in Atlanta, Georgia. We have a rematch between two Big Ten conference rivals, the number one Indiana Hoosiers and the number five Oregon Ducks. So, recap of the last round. Obviously, we saw Oregon, the first game on Saturday at noon, kickoff from Miami. Oregon absolutely destroyed Texas Tech. I mean, Texas Tech defense put up a pretty good fight, for most of the game, but at the end they kind of just fell apart. They couldn't hold off. You can only do so much, but if your offense can literally not score a single point all game long, eventually the defense is going to bend, and eventually they broke. So, shout out to the defense giving the effort, but that Texas Tech offense did not show up at all. Could not move the ball to save their lives. I don't even know how many times they were in the red zone. Maybe once, all day long, and it probably ended in like a fumble or a pick because that's all they were doing was turning the ball over. So I mean, Tom, I think you were right saying that Oregon probably had the easiest path, up to this point. First round against James Madison. I mean, obviously that speaks for itself. And then against Texas Tech, I mean, one could argue they beat Texas Tech worse than they beat James Madison because, you know, at least James Madison put up 34. I mean, I know it was against backups and stuff, but Texas Tech can't score a single point all game long. So basically got belt to ass as well. So Oregon, I mean, it's been a smooth ride up to this point, and it's interesting. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but when you think about the season that Oregon had last year, going undefeated, Big Ten champs, they get the first round bye, they're number one, and then they lose in their first game against Ohio State, and the season's over just like that. I mean, you go from 13-0 to one loss, and then you're done. Versus this year, they lose one game during the season, which ends up costing them a Big Ten championship appearance. They don't get a bye; they get the 5 seed, but here they are in the semifinals. Like, it seemed to be an easier ride than they had last year. And I actually saw a clip of Dan Lanning, their coach, talk about it and how the fact that he was actually he was hoping that they would have the 5 seed instead of the top four because of what happened to them last year. So probably just another point in why we need to change the structure and whatnot, and we need to change the format up. But back to the point, Oregon is obviously elated to be at this point, based on how their season ended last year. They are very motivated and very hungry to get a championship. Still have not won one in their program history. So if we see Oregon win a championship, that'll be their first, and that will be, history that we've never seen before. So that's a very cool storyline on their side. Obviously, on the other side, oh my goodness. The number one Indiana Hoosiers, still undefeated after we saw them. Is there a word for what they did to Alabama in the Rose Bowl? Is there a
There
word
is,
for
but
it?
there is, but we can't say it on YouTube.
I think yeah, I think it goes beyond just crushed or blown out or belt ass. I think it's worse because that was just an absolute murder. That was a homicide spree that we saw go down in Pasadena. Because okay, I'll tell you one thing. Am I surprised that Indiana beat Alabama? No. We know Indiana is a for sure player at this point. I told you that before the game, during our previews last time. I said, hey, I will not bet against Indiana anymore. After they beat Ohio State, I said, I will not bet against this team anymore. I done seen enough. And never in a million years did I think they were going to beat Alabama by 35, though. Like, that's just crazy. Like, what? I was watching that game and I was just thinking to myself, 5 years ago, if you would have told me Indiana would be beating Alabama by 35 in the Rose Bowl, I'd be like, no, no, just no. Like that's not possible. That's absolutely not possible. Is this basketball? Are we talking about basketball? Like what? What is going on? I have never seen Alabama get destroyed like that before. I don't think ever. Have you ever seen Alabama get beat like that, Tom? Like in recent memory or at all?
Ooh, I don't know. There might have been like one time after Saban, because they went 8-4 after Saban left.
But an ass whooping like that, 38-3 in the biggest game all season?
It doesn't. There's not a specific one that comes to mind. I just feel like maybe there's one,
I,
like maybe one since Nick Saban. But other than that, in my lifetime, um, no, no, not. I mean, not since pre Nick Saban era. But that doesn't count. So.
I don't even have a comparison for what I saw on New Year's Day. Like I was like, Indiana is absolutely humiliating Alabama on national TV in the biggest possible college football game, the Rose Bowl, the tradition of college football. Alabama is getting embarrassed. It was so bad that I was like, you know,
Oh wait, no, no, no. I remember. No, they got embarrassed this year just earlier when they played Georgia in the SEC championship. They had negative rushing yards.
but it wasn't even this bad though. This was like
That's
oh,
true.
this was like a whole different level. like Alabama at least put up a little bit of fight at the end, and they made the scoreboard look a little decent. This was just an overall just humiliation ritual. Like Alabama has no leg to stand on for their performance in that game. I have never seen Alabama play so bad in a game before. I was like, this is just this is never I have never seen anything like this in my life. And it was I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed it. I bet there's a lot of people out there that were like, oh, that was a bad game. That was a terrible game. Hey, maybe it wasn't competitive, but I would be lying if I said I did not enjoy Alabama getting the floor mopped. I was pretty locked in enjoying that ass whooping that they were giving them. And it was very refreshing to see, like that's something I've never seen before. So the fact that I was witnessing that live was just, it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I can't lie. But back to the point, Indiana is just an absolute powerhouse at this point. They are the new Alabama. It seems to be. They have passed the torch. They didn't pass it. They stole it. They just beat it out of them. They beat the torch out of them, took it from them. Indiana now runs things. It appears so. So, all hail the Hoosiers. All hail Kurt Signetti. Uh, uh, best coach of all time, possibly, just because of who. Okay, so if Kurt Signetti was doing this at Alabama, right, nobody would really blink twice, right? But he's doing this at Indiana. It's like it's crazy. Like, this got to be the best coaching job the world has ever seen. I don't have any comparisons. I really don't. I really don't. I mean, what Ben Johnson is doing for the Bears right now is pretty cool, but this is just a whole different level. Like, it's amazing. So, um, my prediction. Like I said, I can't pick against this team anymore. I will not, and I refuse to. And I don't even got no money or no stakes in this, but I will not pick against Kurt Signetti. So my pick is Indiana. You make the point that it's hard to beat the same team twice in a season, and we go back to the fact that earlier on Indiana beat Oregon on the road in Autzen. By the way, on the road beat them. It's hard to beat the same team twice. Oregon is obviously very motivated to this in this game to get to the national championship, but I'm not picking against Indiana. I'm just not gonna do it anymore. I'm not gonna do it. So, um, as good as Oregon is, I mean, it could definitely go either way. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna pick against Kurt Signetti. So, all hail the Hoosiers. But Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, you pretty much covered all the bases, I think. But yeah, no, Kurt Signetti, like you said, I mean, you want to talk about one of the greatest coaches. I mean, even before he was at Alabama, I mean, he was winning like crazy. And then after Alabama at JMU, he was winning like crazy. And he just hit the ground running straight off on at Indiana, where most of the time you don't anticipate a coach to have such a good season, their first season at Indiana. But with him bringing over a lot of players from JMU, they instilled a culture. They knew what it took. They knew what Signetti wanted, and they did it. And granted, they still lost in the playoffs, but they made the playoffs in his first year. That might be the most impressive thing you can do currently as a head football coach in college football. So, agreed. I mean, if Signetti starts a little dynasty over there at Indiana, they people might look to him as the best coach of all time, like you said, because Saban turned the program around a little bit, but it's still Alabama. They were still hungry for a good football team. Indiana has never ever been hungry for a good football team. They just want a decent football team. They want to compete. They maybe want to beat Ohio State every now and then. They want to beat the Penn States, Michigans. That makes their season. That keeps their coach a job usually. If you're a coach at Indiana and you beat a big team, even though you go 7-5, they go, well, he beat Ohio State, so we'll keep him. But now it's like, whew, he's blown that standard out of the water. So, shout out to Kurt Signetti, man. I wish we could do that over here in Nebraska with Matt Rule. We've been asking him, but we just haven't seen it yet. But no, I mean, shout out Signetti. He's done great. When it comes to Oregon, Oregon has never won an Natty either, and I think this year Dan Lanning has made it very clear to his team that I don't think I don't think anybody really expects Oregon to win much because Oregon's usually that team where they'll have a really good season, but they end up not winning, and so. Oregon's been to a national championship, not won it. They've been there, but haven't got there. You know what I mean? I'm sure they have a couple Rose Bowls, which is good. Congratulations. But I think Oregon is just as hungry as Indiana for this win. So I think this game is going to be a good dogfight. Again, we saw the first game. The score was 20-15. I know before the chat you also mentioned that the scoreboard did not reflect actually how close the game was. So, I mean, we'll see this game, truthfully, how close the game actually is. Because I think Oregon's ready for Indiana, and I think Indiana's ready for Oregon. And this is going to be a knockdown, drag out street fight. Last man standing wins. Whoever can hit harder and then also take a shot. I mean, because both teams. This game, I think both teams are going to have some big plays, some scores. It's not going to be a 10-3 game, but I think it's going to be more of like a 20-14 game. It's still going to be low scoring. Going to be a Big Ten game. And again, it's one of those games where when you look at Indiana, I forget they have I know for sure it's less than 10. So I'm just gonna cover it's not 9 or 8 either. I think it's 7, but they have less than 10 5 stars on the roster. And when you look at Oregon, Oregon is loaded with 5 stars. But when you look at who Indiana's played, Indiana played Alabama. Alabama had like 55 stars, and look at what happened to them. So Indiana is kind of one of those teams where it's like they don't give a fuck who they play. They don't give a fuck where they play them. Just line up and let's play ball. And you got to respect that, especially like that's a lot of coaching too, because they do not lack confidence. Indiana has all the confidence in the world. They went into that Alabama game feeling like they could win. I loved Kurt Signetti's quote. He goes, "What? You thought the moment was going to be too big because our name is Indiana? Like, get out of here, dude. Like, we're fine." And they were. They absolutely were. It was great. And I really appreciated seeing that. So, I mean, if I had to pick them in this game, I'm going to pick Indiana just because I think, like we've talked about, the bye week affects teams. But then when you're Indiana and you beat Alabama by 35, oof, I mean, that's as good of a warm up game as you're going to get going into somebody like Oregon. So, um, and again, I know Oregon has proven that cross country travel doesn't affect them, but Indiana has a much shorter flight than Oregon does. And so as long as Oregon gets there plenty early, that won't be a factor. But I think just in general, all the factors combined, I like Indiana over Oregon, and I think Indiana's a really good team. So give me Indiana over Oregon. I'm happy that Oregon made it this far, and I'm happy that we're going to see a Big Ten team in the national championship again this year for the third straight year in a row. So give me Indiana. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout like it was against Alabama. Um, so any final thoughts?
Not much, not much. I did really like a couple things that you said there. One, the fact that okay, so back to the buys real quick. Going back to last year, the buy teams up until Indiana beat Alabama were 0-6. We saw Arizona State last year get a bye. They lost to Texas. Boise State got a bye last year. They lost to Penn State. Georgia has lost after their buys last year and now this year. 2 years in a row for Georgia. Excuse me, Ohio State loses their first game, second round. So up until Indiana beat Alabama 0-6, it was looking really bad. And then even after that, Georgia lost again, right? So that was a seventh loss. How is Indiana the only team that was able to defy the bye curse that is starting to be created? Every other team has been cursed by the bye. Oh, and then Oregon last year as well, against Ohio State. Every other team has been cursed by it, except for Indiana. Like, just that itself, that tells me something is different about this team. Something is different about Indiana because Oregon couldn't do it, Georgia couldn't do it twice, Arizona State, Boise State, Ohio State this year. None of these other teams could pull it off, but yet Indiana can. I mean, that's just like we are in some unprecedented times here, Tom. Like it is really wild. It's really wild. So, just want to reiterate that point right there. And then my last thing is, Tom, I got a question for you because I saw this. Somebody posted this online. I saw this question. I thought it was really interesting. Um, we see how good Indiana is right now, right? You talked about it, how they only have a limited amount of 5 stars, probably 4 stars as well. They're probably working with a lot of 2 and 3 stars, to be honest. Like half the team came from James Madison. So what I mean, this isn't the top of the recruiting class, right? If Indiana is this good right now, Tom, what happens when Indiana starts recruiting like like the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Ohio States? What happens when they start getting 5 stars? Because they're coming. Because I'll tell you right now, if I was coming out of high school and I was the number one recruit in the nation, you know where I want to play? Hurt Sick Daddy at this point. So once these 5 stars start flowing in, how good is this team gonna be, Tom? Are we looking at another dynasty? Like, I was really thinking about it. Like, this is a crazy scenario. What do you think?
Um, Short and long answer are the same, and yes, yes. Short and long answer is yes. We are looking at a future dynasty, because there's not going to be anywhere that Kurt Signetti needs to go. He's not going to have to leave. The only thing I think that will end up eventually holding Indiana back is the NIL money. But even then, I don't think Kurt Signetti's going to want to. I don't think he's going to want to deal with kids that they're like, oh well, if you're not going to pay me this much, then I'm not going to come. He's probably going to just look them in the eyes and say, okay, I'll see you. Maybe I'll see you in the playoffs.
I don't need you.
Probably not.
I don't need you. I can win with 2 stars and 3 stars. I don't need you.
Exactly.